The concept of habits and consistency are somewhat related. We've all heard of the vernacular that every choice which we make has consequences attached. Because you see, the daily habits in our lives are the small decisions that we make which determine the trajectory of our lives and the wisdom of our thinking. According to research published by Duke University, it found that habits account for approximately 40% of our behaviors on any given day. It's like the old sports analogy of any given Sunday, any team can beat anyone on the field. However, it's our consistent habits which have the most bearing on a potential outcome. Simply stated, that your life today is a sum of your habits. Metaphorically, it asks you how in shape or out of shape are your lives, and it all is connected back to your habits. To provide some further perspective to this very discussion, I want to take a moment and introduce you to my friend Michael Law. He's the host of the Millionaires to Billionaires talk show and the founder of the Ideal app. Law says that it's the number one performance app on the market for mastering your habits. For over a decade now, Law has been inspiring millions of people to step into the potential of their greatness, and as such, his life of contribution has been recognized by luminaries in both the educational and business industries. Law places significant emphasis on the idea of personal and professional responsibility and accountability to make sure that there is some level of investment in our own futures. And he joined me this week to tell me more. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Michael, if you're ready, I'll take a moment, my friend, to welcome you to the program. I'll wish you a good weekend, my friend, and I'm super excited to learn about your Ideal app and all the good work that you do to move the business needle forward, my friend. Great to see you, and happy Saturday to you.
Man, happy Saturday.
So, Michael, I know that you're an ambitious person, so I wanted to start by asking you, what does it mean to you to have elite ambition in business? What do you think that means to you?
Definitely when you have ambition, what does it mean to have ambition in business for me is knowing that the outcome is going to be greater than just you alone. You know, whenever you're building a business, we as entrepreneurs tend to say, I want to build this business for me. But in reality, having this ambition to go build a big business, you do need a team. And what I always say as a business owner is I don't work for, the employees and the staff and the volunteers and everybody. They don't work for me in my business. I actually work for them, and it's my ambition to have everybody aligned on the same goal that could get us to achieve the company goals and the company vision and the impact we want to make on the world. So really the ambition really comes from everybody focused on the same vision. I get that ambition from people that support my dreams, which is the employees, the staff, the team, and anybody willing to help that vision grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Michael, I know that you're on a mission to help people learn how to multiply their income and choose their worth by just tweaking the way they think about and approach their money. So I'm wondering if you can tell me more about it, my friend.
Yeah, I got two stories for this. So I was working with a client, and just to answer your question again, we help people choose their income and we choose their worth. So I had a specific client, and I'll do two different stories so people see two different versions of this. So one client wanted to make an extra $3,000 before the year ends. And this is a 90-day program that I do with them. So they wanted to make an extra $3,000 before the year ends. I said, perfect. That's a very realistic and attainable goal, rather than the entrepreneur inside of us that wants to go figure out how we could side hustle that 3,000. I said, you got to be able to think about your way of money, think about your value, and think about what you bring to the table. And it's just $3,000. So is there something, if you could go back to your boss, who you work for, and say, hey, I want to make an extra $1,000 per month working here. Is there anywhere with the current hours that I have? I also said you don't want to work more hours. A lot of people think that if they want to make extra money, they got to go put in extra hours. And that's not the case. So I say, with the value you have and the time you're already hired, what more can you do and bring value to the company to earn an extra $1,000 a month? And boom, sure enough, he went, had that conversation, and got that extra $1,000 a month. 3 months later, he made an extra $3,000. So that's one story, just by kind of like the way we approach our mindset around money. Now, I'll give you a drastic change in somebody's life. So I had another individual I was working with, and this person was working in a sales company, just got hired on at a sales company. And for 3 months in a row, he was the lowest producing sales rep in the company. The company was actually probably going to release him from the company. So to fix the mindset that we perceive about money, what's nice is we always have to have a vision around the money we want to make so that it builds the value inside of us. And so this person's vision is obviously having the house, marrying his spouse, his wife. He's been wanting to marry her, but marry her, have the money to marry her, and provide a good wedding, all this type of stuff. Just by fixing their thought habits around money in 90 days, he went from the bottom performing sales rep to being the highest performing sales rep in the company in 90 days and getting that sales award. From there, it's been 500 days to this day. 500 days later, he does these practices every day that we train on, and he's now not only the top sales rep in the company in 90 days. At day 200, the company sent him to Las Vegas to open up a second office. And day 300, he got his dream home for his family. And at day 500, he married his wife, all with having this different vision around money to go make, I think he's about the 300,000 to 500,000 mark per year now, all because of the perception of saying, what am I worth and what do I want to get paid doing what I already do. A lot of people could take what they already do and what they're already great at and get paid more for it. They just got to change their way around money. And going back to my first story real quick to finish this off, I was telling our first client, I was saying, the company that's paying you right now, they're not only paying you what they pay you. That's not all the company pays. They pay somebody else above you more money, a manager or whatever. So whatever the company's paying you is not all they pay. That's just what they pay you. So in order to get paid more, you just got to bring more value. And that perception, got him to get a pay raise.
Yeah, absolutely. So you talk about value, Michael, and I want to ask you, as a successful business person, the value of what I call a value proposition statement. You know, as a motivational speaker, when I speak to organizations, my friend, I talk about having a value proposition statement and the value of consistency as well. So, how do you think those two things are interconnected?
Definitely having a value proposition and being able to I like to see it. I try to get the marketing out of the way. So a lot of people, yes, I talk about value when I'm explaining it so we can understand what it is, but I try to even get the word value out of the way and I try to replace the word value with worth. What are you worth? Because what you're worth will then bring, having this value proposition is more like, what is this worth proposition? Because the way we think is going to change, our value, our worth. And so when I think sometimes in terms, especially in business, when we think value, we're always thinking dollar signs and money and measurables. But when we change just simply the word from value to worth, now we're changing what is this worth to me instead of what is the value I'm getting out of this? What is this worth to me? And it goes a lot deeper now. So when you say it's worth to me, well, if getting a pay raise and bringing more worth to the company will actually get me a better household, it'll actually block out the fears of paying bills. A lot of people have the fear of, being late on bills or being behind on bills. And when you up your worth, this value proposition, it gets interconnected to with the way you perform. And so that way you're able to just to perform at a higher level. But not only that, everybody around you starts to recognize it. And when you are a high achiever, it actually brings everybody else's performance up with you in the business. So if you want to take the responsibility of being the high achiever in the business, you will lift the standard in the business or in the room, and everybody else will try to perform at your level. So I always encourage people to, figure out what the worth that you choose your worth, and then let everybody else be impacted and inspired to perform at your level. And it actually will ultimately build the business.
Yeah, and just building on the notion of consistency. Once you have a plan or a framework in place, it's easier to be consistent, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. When you have structure, the biggest thing I see with even like my clients and just in general, the reason why I say my clients is because I'm a habit coach and I focus on your thought habits. And the biggest thing I see is a lack of structure. The instant we put structure in place with somebody and we commit to that structure, that's the other thing is commit to the structure. Once you commit to a structure and some action steps, man, it consistency, it's hard to not be consistent. And once you're consistent, that'll build your confidence, that'll build, everything else that needs to get built in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, Michael, you also work with people that make money solely on commissions, and you tell me that there's a certain mindset or approach that people who work with commissions need to have to be successful. So I'm wondering if you could tell me about it.
Yeah, I've worked on commissions in the past, and when you work on solely commissions, what you're saying is you better be good at communications and you better be good at sales. A lot of sales commissions people have lack of confidence and really a lack of belief inside of their business. And I was telling somebody specifically, I'll stick to real estate, for example, because I was having this conversation with one of my real estate clients, and I was saying, you want to go build a $50 million a year business in real estate, but you haven't done your first deal. So there's a lack of belief, there's a lack of confidence, there's fear of failure, there's worry, there's doubt. All these things are always in the beginning of a sales rep's journey because the only way they're going to pay their bills is if they go make a sale. And so a lot of this worry, doubt, fear, anxiety, stress might build up in a salesperson. So what I do is I focus on changing their thought patterns. I get a clue of how they're thinking and I recognize their patterns of how they're thinking. And what we'll do is we'll change their way they view money and the way they view themselves. And we'll work on these habits, 30 days in a row, create a new habit about, confidence. Just that one habit of confidence now gets them to go make a sell. Once they make a sell and money hits their bank account, now their belief grows. And when their confidence and belief grows, taking it one deal at a time, that's when they have a bigger vision to go execute on bigger deals over and over and over again to now make the money that they are worth, right? And so a lot of sales commissions, people in commission only, they just got to build the confidence and then the belief. But confidence only comes from what you were talking about, consistency. You got to be willing to go hit 100 no's and get one yes. But once that one yes hits your bank account, your belief system is going to spike up and you're going to go sell a whole lot more. But it's really getting over the number game. A lot of people fear going after 100 no's. And it's like, man, use it as practice. If you know you're going to get a no, you might as well just use that as practice anyway and enjoy the no while you're going to get the yes later.
Yeah, and Michael, what are your thoughts on the concept of, capitalizing on opportunities? We've all heard this saying that you miss 100 shots that you don't take, my friend. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on capitalizing on opportunities, both in life and in business? That the mindset that you have to have in order to capitalize on opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say to capitalize on opportunities, everything is temporary, first of all. Everything in life is temporary. So you got to take advantage of the short-term opportunities because a lot of opportunities, they come and they go quick, right? So let me tell you a story about how to capitalize on opportunities. I was once told I was talking to an individual, very successful individual, and he gave me the analogy, or he gave me the concept of 80% preparation and 20% is luck. Now, let's take this example. Let's say you're a UFC fighter and you're coming into the UFC and you're getting or let's say you're coming into the UFC and you want to be a UFC superstar, right? And you're practicing and you're working your whole life to be this major UFC fighter. And you're in a ring and you have an audience base. Now, check this out. Let's say Dana White, the founder of UFC, walks into the arena and he sees you fighting. Now, there's two different perceptions. There's one person who's a fan of Dana White who walks over to Dana White and takes a selfie with him and says, hey guys, posts it on social media and says, hey guys, I met Dana White, super cool, check this out, whatever, got his autograph, all that. And then he goes back to the stands and sits down. Now, check this out. The person in the ring has been practicing for 10, 15 years, fight after fight, putting in the work. And Dana White sees him putting in the work and he says, you know what? This guy in the ring has potential. The fight ends. They go back to the green room and Dana White walks back to the green room and says, hey man, I saw the way you were fighting tonight. I saw the heart you have. I want to sign you a deal with the UFC. Check this out. You have two people who both met Dana White in the same night. And the opportunity was there. The opportunity was there for the person in the stands to sign a UFC contract, and the opportunity was there for the person in the ring to sign a UFC contract. But the person that was preparing got 20% of the luck of Dana White saying, hey, I want you to sign a deal with the UFC. And now you're locked in with Dana White forever, rather than the fan that was just sitting in the audience saying, yo, I took a picture with Dana White and got his autograph. So 80% of it has to be the preparation. And as long as you're preparing yourself, especially mentally, if you're preparing yourself for a long period of time, I've been preparing my mindset for a decade now, that a lot of opportunity was missed in that decade because I wasn't ready. Now that I've prepared my mindset, the way I see business, the way I treat people, now opportunity comes to me left and right, that which people call luck. And I say, perfect. I'll accept the luck because yes, I am getting lucky, but I also prepared to accept the luck that I do have.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about having the appropriate perspective, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it takes time to build that perspective. It's not instant. It does take time.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michael, since you're a habits coach, I would be neglectful if I didn't ask you, what's the key to creating great habits, my friend? What do you think the blueprint is there?
Again, we talked about structure, just a few minutes ago, and a lot of us have bad habits. Now, check this out. There's three types of habits. There's a bad habit, a good habit, and a neutral habit. I'll give you an example. Great habit, working out, eating healthy, getting into the gym. That's a good habit to create. There's a bad habit, smoking cigarettes. Smoking cigarettes is a bad habit. Then there's a neutral habit, such as driving. A lot of people can hop in their car and drive, and it's subconsciously able for them to go and drive. I give this example all the time when it comes to driving to show you how powerful your habits are. Some people, you either yourself or somebody has been in this situation where they went to a party and they got blacked out drunk, and somehow they got into the car, they drove all the way home and laid in bed, and they woke up and they, were like, I have no clue how I got home, who drove me home. They walk outside and their car's parked perfectly outside. Now, our subconscious habits are so powerful that we could go get blacked out drunk and our body can perform better than we can perform, and it gets us all the way home. It somehow knows the direction home. So to create a new habit, you have to first identify what the bad habits are that you have. And you got to have a self-talk with yourself and identify, what are my bad habits? After you identify the bad habits, then you got to put a structure in place of what are you going to do every single day to replace with a new habit. And you have to do it every single day until your subconscious gets rewired for that new habit.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Michael, we've reached the point in our conversation where I'm going to give you a quick story about myself, my friend. So,
Yep.
at the age of 9, my friend, I was told by a doctor in a hospital that I wouldn't be able to walk without assistance for the duration of my life because I was born with cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy. So, outside of hosting this podcast, my friend, I work with organizations to help them build a more inclusive culture for folks with disabilities in the workforce. And October happens to be National Disability Employment Awareness Month. So how do you think we can create a more inclusive mindset in business to better infuse folks with disabilities and to take a more inclusive approach in general? What do you think is the key there, my friend?
Yeah, so there's a book I read, and the book is called Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. And in this book, it's simply the title. A lot of us as entrepreneurs are always trying to figure out, how can I do this by myself? How can I do this by myself? How do I learn this? And how do I learn that? And in business and in life, honestly, if you replace the how and you replace it with who, and you say, who can help me do this? Who can help me learn this? Who can help me understand this? Who could do this better than me so I'm not doing it? And when I got into the concept of learning who can help me rather than how can I get it done, it really opened up my mind to include other people, collaborate with other people, learn from other people, and let other people feel valued, heard, and seen. So that way the environment and the collaboration and the vision can get hit a lot faster and actually more efficient because it's very more inclusive. So I'm thinking, if you're on your journey and you're stuck, stop worrying about the how and start asking yourself the question, who can help me get there and who can, fill this role? And when you do that, you really build an environment of inclusivity from everybody around you.
Yeah, and Michael, tell me, how do we create a competitive advantage in business? What do you think is the key there, my friend?
I'll tell you my simple answer to this. A lot of people, I'm not going to go into the technical side of how do you create a competitive advantage as far as you got to do this in your business and this in your business and this in your business. I'll tell you a simple answer to creating a competitive advantage is finding yourself a team of people that all align for the same vision and are willing to sacrifice something in their life, whether it's time, money, energy, something, resources. They're willing to sacrifice something in their life, a group of people to go towards a common goal. And if you have that, I have that in my business with Ideal. I have a competitive advantage because of my team. My team all sees the vision. They all see the vision. I feel like they see the vision even more than I see the vision. So much so that we will outbeat every competitor that we have because of the team we're putting in place, and not a team of ego, not a team of pride. We're putting a team of experts that all believe in getting the same outcome. So that way we're able to get further faster. And people love to work with people they know, like, and trust. We've heard that. My whole team, and if you could build a team around you of people that have been doing good business for a long period of time, a lot of people trust that person. And so my simple answer is get a team around you that all wants to lock in on the same vision and is willing to sacrifice for that same vision. And you will have a competitive advantage because you don't just have you trying to outlast your dreams and goals and everything, but now you got a team trying to outlast every single person out there, every objection, every obstacle in the way. They're outlasting that to get to the end result. And ultimately you'll, have a competitive advantage that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michael, I know that you're the host of the Millionaires to Billionaires talk show, my friend. So tell me about the show, its mission, and why you're so passionate about it, my friend.
Absolutely. So we talked about being a habit coach, and Millionaires to Billionaires talk show really dives deeper into daily success habits, daily financial habits, and daily goal setting practices. However, what we do is on the talk show is we invite successful entrepreneurs or influential people from all around the world. And what's nice about this is everybody has a different journey that they're on. Everybody started somewhere different and everybody ended up with a different result. However, there's some similarities in how they got there. And a lot of the ways they got there is by the habits that they created to get them from where they started to where they're currently at. And so we have conversations around habits on the show. So that's what the whole show is about. And I'm passionate about it because it's important to me, rather than to talk about my story and the way I grew up and my pains and all that. I really like to learn about, get the information from the people that have it, who've succeeded, and deliver it to the people that need it, which is mine and your audience.
Yeah, and Michael, I know, of course, you're the founder of the Ideal app, my friend, which is a performance app all focused on mastering habits, my friend. So tell me about the app and how it works, buddy.
Yeah, so we have Ideal and then we have Ideal University. It's the same company. We just have our Ideal, which is the brand, and Ideal University, which is our education platform. So it's currently a project to bring exactly what I said, all the people who have the information and deliver it to the people that need it into the palm of your hands. So if you've read Napoleon's Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and all the way from every personal development coach on the planet, they all talk about specific key things that need to happen to create success. So what we did is inside of this book, actually right here, and inside of the app, we put all the success habits that you need to do on a daily basis to rewire your mind for success. And we put it all into one central location, both in a book and in the app. So that way you have it at the, access at the palm of your hands. Then there's going to be educational stuff in the app as well. So there's going to be instructors that have sold billion-dollar companies, instructors in the app that have been New York Times bestsellers or sold 30 million books. And there's going to be people in there that have created success that are instructing you on how they did it. So that way you can learn from them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Michael, I'm fascinated to ask you about when you look at the world today from a societal perspective, how much do you think business has a social responsibility to contribute to the conversation of progress? And before you answer that, I'll give you a little bit of a context. One of the reasons, Michael, I wanted to start this podcast was I wanted a platform that worked to sort of move the needle of societal progress forward. I'm interested in healing divisions and giving people solutions to solve everyday practical business and life problems, my friend. So tell me, what sort of a social responsibility do you think businesses have to contribute to the conversation of progress?
So I'll tell you a short story. I was in an airport, and every time I'm in an airport, I always, while I'm waiting for my flight, I'll go to one of the bookstores and I'll just grab a book and I'll start reading through the book and I'll see what draws my attention to this book. So I was at an airport and I went and I grabbed a book that was just calling me from a distance. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go see what this book is. I pull it out the shelf and I open the table of contents because the way I read a book fast, especially in the airport, is I'll look at the table of contents and I'll say, what chapter intrigues me most? And when I was reading the table of contents, there was a chapter called To Save the World, Save Capitalism. And that really touched home with me because in entrepreneurship and business, it's very important to understand that the only way, especially as the youth grows, to live their vision and live their dream is to go be an entrepreneur or at least learn entrepreneur skill sets in the workplace. So as a business owner, even myself and my business, I want people to come work with me with the intention that you're gonna work with me. Since you're working with me, ask me all the questions you want to ask me over the next 3, 5, 10, 20 years, however long you're working with the intention on, I want to see you go live and fulfill your dream. So whenever you're ready to leave the company, but also talk to me about it and say, hey, Michael, I'm going to leave Ideal, but I want to go create my dream doing this. And I'm going to support you any way I can. I'm going to say, hey, go live your dreams. If you need anything, call me. I'm going to connect you to this person and this person and this person. So I'm not an employer. I'm not a business that says, no, you're only going to work for me the rest of your life. I'm saying, I don't want you to work for me the rest of your life. I want you to come here, learn, make money. And when you're ready and you have a vision for yourself, let me help you go create that vision so you can live your ideal life.
Yeah, and Michael, I know that you've been honored for your work in mentoring youth and being recognized as an expert in the field of human mind and how it works, my friend. So tell me about getting those honors and the importance of mentoring youth and why it's so important to you.
Yeah, the education system, as we know, is really going downhill. And all the curriculum across the world is based on 60-year-old curriculum that has not changed from 60 years ago. So it's important for me, since I'm learning, I come from that background of poverty. I grew up in poverty. I know exactly what the education system is teaching you in a poverty area. And when I discovered success habits and success principles, and I started building relationships with successful people, I started learning success education. And so I was like, man, I have a newly 6-month daughter right now. And I am passionate about not only impacting the youth before I had her, but now that I have a daughter, I'm more excited to really get this information to the youth even more because she's going to grow up in this education system. And so I'm saying, how can I change or make it a huge impact on the education system so everybody goes to Ideal University rather than going to public school and getting the education that's old, outdated, and it's not challenging these students. It's not challenging their mind, their creativity, their willingness to go do, their intellectual, resources that they have. And so us as humans are built to create. And the current school system limits us from going and creating. And I want to make that impact on mentoring the youth, working with the youth, and giving them a vision and seeing what the heck they go do with it, And that's what excites me. I want to see what the youth that we have today, what they could go create in our lifetime, and then obviously beyond that and pass it on.
Yeah, and Michael, I wanted to ask you about the difference between instant success and making a transformational impact. Because, there are some people like I'll use myself for an example. So outside of doing this podcast, but I also do some motivational speaking, and I get paid to tell my story about how I was told that I wouldn't be able to walk at the age of 9. But I think there's a fundamental difference between instant success and getting the applause rather than putting in the work to, make a long-term difference as a speaker. Because a lot of people are excited to get the paycheck, so to speak, but they're not so excited to do the grunt work. So, what do you think is the difference between instant success and making a transformational impact?
I believe we live in a social media dominant world where social media makes a lot of it makes a lot of people make decisions rather than people thinking for themselves. I'm gonna tell you a interesting fact. In Japan, their Japan's business philosophy, and the fact comes from this. In Japan, there are over 100,000 companies that are over 100 years old. How is there 100,000 companies over 100 years old? Here in America, there's probably like freaking 10 companies that are over 100 years old, So why is it that in Japan, there's 100,000 companies that are over 100 years old? Well, the reason is because when you go to someone in Japan and you say, hey, give me your short-term business plan, you know what their short-term business plan is? It's 20 years long. You know what their long-term vision plan is? 100 years. If I go to somebody here in America and I say, give me your short-term business plan, you know what they give me? They give me a 1 year to 3 year business plan. And they're so short-minded on what it really takes to build a successful legacy and a successful company. So I encourage entrepreneurs, when you're building a short-term business plan, expect to be your short-term business plan 20 years. If you want this company to be around when you're dead and you're past and this company's still around, then you want it to be a 300-year company, a 500-year company, you got to have the vision that it's going to take you 50 years to build a very highly successful, it's never going away company. Like think of Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola markets to you as a kid, and then you grow up with Coca-Cola commercials for 20 years. And then as an adult, you subconsciously go to the store and keep buying Coca-Cola. And then you give Coca-Cola to your kids. And then the cycle just continues. Therefore, they could be a company for 100, 200 years. And we got to get into instant gratification too, is we got to get into the mindset of material things don't pay me. And this is the mindset I had to get into, is material things don't pay me. If I was going to go wear Nike shoes, well, I got two options. Either Nike better pay me to go buy their expensive shoes, or I'm just going to go buy cheaper shoes, right? Or Louis Vuitton. If Louis Vuitton, I always tell people the concept of materialistic and affordability. When people say, oh, it's too expensive, I say nothing's expensive. You just can't afford it. Now, I'm going to tell you this analogy and give you this story for like Louis Vuitton as an example. And it might open your mind across instant gratification. Mm-hmm. Someone who can afford Louis Vuitton affords it because the tax code says they need to go spend money. Their tax attorney says, hey, Michael, you have $50,000 in taxes you owe. You either pay the IRS, pay Uncle Sam this 50 grand, or you go spend it on business expenses. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go buy me $50,000 worth of clothes. So I go to the store, and I can't go to H&M. I'm going to buy the whole store. So I go to Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Balenciaga, Ferragamo, and I buy the expensive items. So I rack up $50,000 worth of clothes, but it's not a lot of clothes because the clothes are expensive. The bags, the shoes, right? $2,000 backpacks. And so when I'm buying these stuff, it adds up. And when you go to a business setting and you see a business professional all decked out in Louis Vuitton, you don't think, oh, they're materialistic. You think, oh, they make a lot of money because they're forced to buy Louis Vuitton. Now, if I go to a local networking event in town and I see somebody walk up and they're fully Louis Vuittoned out, I'm saying, oh, that person's broke-minded and they're materialistic because they think they have to go buy Louis Vuitton to build their character, to go get sales or build relationships. So there's two different types of people when it comes to instant gratification. The person who wants the money now to buy the products and things that they need, being materialistic, so that they think that's going to get them the deal, or the person that is forced to buy the luxury stuff because the tax code says to. So because they delay their gratification, now they get anything and everything they want, rather than forcing themselves to go broke to get everything early and, having the image. Which one would you rather have? Real wealth, or fake wealth? And at the end of the day, if you could get your mindset across being instantly gratified, you could. And I get that. I get through that by saying, Louis Vuitton don't pay me. Why would I go buy a Louis Vuitton backpack?
And Michael, tell me, what do you think is the difference between commitment versus desire? Because a lot of people may have a desire to do something, but they don't have the sustained commitment in order to get it across the finish line. So what do you think is the difference between commitment versus desire, or desire versus commitment? What do you think is the difference there?
I love this question. So the difference between commitment and desire. Let's talk about desire. Desire is emotional. You got to be emotionally involved in the outcome that you want. So it's a psychology state of that you want to be in, right? And it's something that you're wishing for very, very strongly. Now, it involves passion, and we talked about it, the enthusiasm to go get it. Now, when you have desire is what's going to create your motivation, your internal motivation. So you don't want to be externally motivated, like, oh, I want this Lamborghini, so I'm going to go get it. No, you need a desire so big that it's going to internally motivate you every single day to go get that desire. Now, there is a variable intensity when it comes to desire. The strength of the desire is going to actually vary from person to person and from one situation to another situation. But that's where desire comes from. Desire is very emotional. It's going to draw the motivation from you. And depending on how bad you want it, that's going to draw the intensity of the desire. Now, commitment is something that's behavioral, right? It's the way you behave. So commitment goes beyond desire, and it's more about taking concrete action. Now, your commitment could be long-term or it could be short-term. But if your commitment implies a sustainable dedication and a sense of responsibility to follow through with the promises and goals that you set in place for yourself, that's behavioral to that commitment. And it also, commitment falls with reliability, right? Commitment often means being dependable and reliable in fulfilling obligations and sticking to a plan. So desire is very emotional, and commitment is behavioral, the way you behave. So that would be my difference between commitment and desire.
Yeah, and Michael, I'm curious because I'm a firm believer, my friend, that relationships and networking is the heartbeat of life. It's how we move the needle of both individual personal success forward and professional success, in my view. So tell me, how big of emphasis do you think people should place on cultivating relationships? And what do you think is the key to creating great relationships?
Wealthy people, to answer this, wealthy people build networks, while other people are building other things. And we heard the quote before where your network is your net worth. But people think that where they're just going to go to a networking event and just shake hands with 50 people, and all of a sudden their net worth is going to grow. Where it really comes in, where your network is your net worth, is when you find a relationship you want with somebody getting the results that you want, but they're getting those results today, not from the past. And you're nurturing that relationship. So you're saying, how can I bring value to this person so they deliver value back to me? And maybe somewhere we can make revenue from that relationship long term. And when you do that, I was in a talk show a month ago in Carlsbad, and a good friend of mine who's running a successful company, he said his philosophy is make friends and have fun. And when he said that, I was like, man, you're onto something. We try to complicate life, but if you can make life come down to those two things, make friends and have fun, dude, the relationship is now, the intention is set. Oh, I'm here to be your friend. Oh, by the way, if we're going to be friends, we're going to have fun. Oh, and if we're friends and we're having fun, we're probably going to make a lot of money together and do good business together. And so I think cultivating relationships is something people need to look at as more making friends and having fun long term, and not worry about making it transactional to where it's saying, hey, I just met you, do you want to buy my service? So when it's, hey, I just met you, where do you need help? How can I help you? How can we build a relationship together? Where can I serve you? And then let them ask those questions back to you, and then you guys just start helping each other along the way. That's what's going to cultivate a long, healthy relationship, and you can do it with anybody and everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michael, I'm curious to ask you, what is your greatest motivation in life, or who are some of your greatest role models, and how does it fuel you to be 1% better and sort of demand excellence out of yourself? So, tell me about your internal and external motivation, my friend, and where it comes from.
Yeah, so whenever I started becoming a habit coach, I really dove deep and I said, man, if this is the way you think and the way you start to do things can create anything in a material world that you want to create, then we're limitless. If you could think it, right? There's the quote that says, if you could think it, you could believe it, you can achieve it. Well, when I really studied the science of habits, and I was like, man, the way we think, there's a quote I actually have right here on my phone. And the quote says, we are only limited by the weakness of attention and the poverty of imagination. And that quote drives me because it says, we're only weakened because we can't give attention to something long enough. Going back to our last conversation of building a long, sustainable business, we're only weakened by our lack of attention to something. And then we're also by our lack of imagination. So every day I wake up, I was a creative kid growing up. And as a creative kid, I wanted to do so many different things. And as I became an adult, I was like, man, I can now take these creativities and get paid for doing them. And then when I found out that our bodies and our minds are limitless, there's no limit to our potential. I've always wanted to test that potential. I want to see where it goes. And I believe whenever you have this vision, this fantasy of a goal, and you go after this fantasy and you reach for this fantasy that you have in your mind, then that's what's actually going to stretch your potential. So that's what gets me going, is wanting to know how can I stretch the potential. And some people that actually got me there mindset wise is all your personal development people and just watching business people. I got friends like Peter Taunton, built a gym franchise, 6,000 locations around the world. There's David Meltzer, a little shout out of people, Greg Reed, Sharon Lecter, Brian Smith, all these people that are friends of mine now. I get to hear their stories, and that inspires me to keep going more, because if they could do it, anybody could do it, and if you could do it, you're doing it right now, with all the stuff that people label you. You're like, no, that's not who I am. That's a label that people want to give me, but instead I'm going to go do something I actually want to do and commit to, that I enjoy doing. And it gives other people inspired to go, start a talk show or do the stuff that you're doing as well. So same story for me.
Yeah, and I wanted to dive into the idea of self improvement and linking it to expectations, Michael, because in my life, I've been called an inspirational person for overcoming obstacles, and people always ask me why I'm so positive and optimistic, and I always tell them that the only level of expectations that you have to reach are your own. Because, Michael, it's my view is if you don't have a fundamental level of personal expectations to draw from or to stand on from an individual perspective, it's hard to sort of rise to the level of anyone else's expectations. So I'm curious if you see the linkage between self-improvement and creating your own standard of expectation.
Yeah, man, I love this question because we live in a world where everybody creates a standard and wants everybody to live by it. So to me, there is no right and wrong in this world. There's just people who have done it a certain way and it worked, and people who have done it in a certain way and it didn't work. And that's what excites me because I think number one, you should always start with first self-improvement. When you start with self-improvement, that's the way you get to see the world now in a better, bigger vision way. That having this fantasy goal that I talked about, the only way to even think of a fantasy goal is to self-improve yourself. Because when you start improving your mindset and your vision and get clarity on who you really are, then you know what you're capable of and where your impact is. And so, and I don't believe in comparison, right? I don't believe in me and you. We're on our both different journeys. Like I said on my talk show, we talk about where you started, what you did to get you to where you want to go. You did the same thing that we talk about on my talk show. You started somewhere. People try to plant seeds of a way to think in your mind. You said, no, that's not who I am. I'm this, and this, and committed to it. And now you're a speaker, you're a podcast host, and I know you do a lot more to go make an impact on the world. You're achieving success at a whole different level, and there's no reason to compare me to you because there's a lot I can learn from you, and there's a lot you can learn from me. And that's for everybody else in the world is we could keep learning from each other, but what you're good at, I might not be good at, and what I'm good at, you're probably not good at. So why compare if we're not even in the same arena? People want to say, oh man, I wish I was as successful as LeBron. You don't even play basketball. What do you mean? Why are you trying to compare yourself to LeBron if you don't even play basketball? So I believe in one, just focus on yourself. The best way to compete with anybody else is just keep competing with yourself. The more you keep building yourself 1% every single day, dude, everybody's going to start looking up to you, and you're going to start looking left and right and saying, wow, everybody I was thinking of competing with is actually my friend, and you start building those friendships and relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Michael, I'm going to end by asking you to reflect on the meaning of perseverance, my friend, and how you want your personal and professional legacy to be defined, my friend. So how do you view the concept of perseverance, and how do you want your legacy to be defined?
Yeah, perseverance, you got to be willing to just keep on going no matter what. We talked about consistency earlier in the conversation. And when I just talked about there is no right or wrong, man, just persevere, just keep on going. A buddy told me once, he said, to build $1 billion business, you just have to be in business one more day, because the odds of somebody else dropping their business because they're 5 years in and it hasn't worked, and all they had to do was go one more day and one more day, and maybe on year 7, it turned into a $100 million company, and then year 10, it turned into $1 billion company. You can outlast. All you have to do is outlast all your competitors. When you outlast them and you just go one more day and keep improving, by the way, get 1% better every day and just go one more day, you're going to build a legacy. So when it comes to perseverance, just go one more day. And so that's my perception on perseverance. As far as my legacy, the way I want my legacy to be remembered will continue to change, years and years go by. But I do know I want to impact on personal transformation in the world. So I believe that individuals have the power to change their lives by changing their thoughts and beliefs. Mm-hmm. And I know you could do that, and anybody can do that. So when it comes to personal transformation, I want to touch lives there. My talk show is free. I want people to go same as your podcast. Your podcast is free. People need to go listen to valuable information and digest information that's accessible to them free. And I want to make an impact on delivering so much value to people for free, so they don't have to go pay millions of dollars for it or hundreds of thousands of dollars for it. They could get access to it by listening to my show, listening to your show. So those are different areas. I definitely see myself mentoring and teaching, where people look back at my life and they say, hey, man, if I didn't listen to Michael, or if I didn't join Michael's program, then I don't know where I would be today. And then just having a global reach. I want to be known all over the world, all over the globe. I want people to definitely study people like me. I want people to study you, and be like, man, what was it that Kevin was doing that he made an imprint on the world? Like, people should be studying people like us because of the impact we're leaving. So that's a little bit about legacy. And of course, over time, it'll change. I'll have more experiences that'll change that. But at the end of the day, make an impact, change the education system and make an impact on our youth.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, Michael, tell me if people want to get connected with you, both personally or professionally, what's the best way they can do that, my friend?
Yeah, personally, you can message me on all social media platforms under Michael Law, LAW. It'll change, michaellaw.io, Michael Law, LinkedIn, stuff like that. And then professionally, idealu.io is my main page, my main website. And you can learn about everything I'm doing on a professional level, the books we have, the tools we have, how to get access to me, how to find our podcast and our talk show, and just anything else, So those are the two best ways to get a hold of me.
Well, fabulous, Michael. You're doing a great job, friend, forming people's habits, their view on life, their business outcomes, and everything in between, my friend. It was a real pleasure to engage in conversation with you today, my friend, and I want to thank you for the good work that you're doing to move the needle of progress forward, and for joining me this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
Awesome, Kevin. I appreciate it. Love the show, and I'm excited to, feed more people your way and hear the content that you're doing and the impact you're making and the difference you're doing too as well.